Hello everyone, I'm Vasudha Wantu and I am here to do a Q&A on behalf of UK Asian Film Festival. Today we have director Rajesh James with us to talk about his film In Thunder, Lightning and Rain. Hello Rajesh, how are you?
Hi Vasudha, hi everyone. Glad to see you all, and I hope you will definitely love my small documentary, and I hope you like it.
How are you? I hope everybody around you, everybody's safe and well. The news coming out is
Yeah,
very worrying.
yeah, exactly. We are doing, we are all rather safe right now, but we are having a very grave news around us. But hopefully, we will survive, or we will some way overcome this situation.
I hope. I
That's
hope.
what we think. Yeah, yeah.
So let me begin by talking about your film. It's an incredible
Yeah.
film. It's a story of three women. And could I ask you right at the beginning, what compelled you to tell the story of these three women?
So, as a person, I work in a place called Kochi. It's a South Indian city, and of course, I came across what do you call it, an undertaken women named you know Celine, and it was rather an accidental meeting with her. So from my work conditions, one day I accidentally went to her place, and so the kind of work that she does. So, in fact, that was a different experience for me as a person. So, the first question, which is actually a naive question, like, aren't you afraid to work here? So, I mean, that was a question which came to my mind when I encountered, Celine. So I asked her, and she answered this way: "I'm not afraid, but I'm not afraid of dead bodies, but I am afraid more my husband, right?" So that was a question. That was the answer she gave. In fact, I mean, I never expected such an answer. I mean, from that answer, I thought, I mean, there is a story inside her. I mean, the kind of work that she does is obvious to us, but at the same time, there is some stories inside her which I need to, work on. That's how I started the film, and later the other two women were part of the film, and the scope of the film rather I extended, and that's how we see the film right now as it is.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's it was really interesting to see images of women engaging in labor,
yeah,
and that's when I realized we do not see enough of this, of women engaging in vocation, and the guiding the eye of the viewer to their vocation. And yes, there was story about the struggles they have been,
yeah,
but I feel you did not portray them as victims, you portrayed them as heroes of
yeah,
their stories, and asking questions about their labor question.
yeah.
Were these things important for you?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's a point I wanted to communicate to this film. In fact, I don't want to focus on the sufferings part, but I want to focus more on the endurance part of it. I mean, how do they survive the kind of the sufferings that they encounter in their life? And more importantly, labor was focused because these labors are not the usual labors that we usually see in the mainstream. So we need to talk about the so-called labors, which is not part of the mainstream media or mainstream discourses, and that's how I ended up with three different, jobs that
Hmm.
these women do. For instance, the footballer's job is not so strange, maybe for the Western audience, but in Kerala,
Hmm.
we don't see a lady who actually trains, boys and girls in any sports and game, particularly football. Maybe after some period of their time they quit the profession and they'll move to some other thing. That's how usually happens here. But one day as I was you know living in my place, I saw a lady who plays football with a group of old men or men. So that was actually a striking sight for me, right? We don't usually see that side here. Men, of course, plays with them among their group, but here you see a lady who plays football with men. So that was actually a strikingly a different scene for me. So, and that's how I talked to her, and maybe I have done some research, and I actually found how different she is, even in her, when she enjoys her passion, right? She does her passion, that is playing football, but at the same time, she also see it as a labor in the sense that she wants to train both men and women to achieve their goals, and she has been, you know, she underwent a lot of struggles in her life, and football was her whatever answer to all the struggles and maybe the kind of questions that she got in her life. And so is the case with the other lady, the fisherwoman.
Mm.
And interestingly, I particularly love the way she enjoys her labor. She
Mm.
goes to the river, she catches the fish, she goes to the market, she sells the fish, she sings the song, and I mean it's almost like what do you call an absolute jouissance of life. She celebrates her life, although she does this act of catching fish. I
Mm.
couldn't find such a joy somebody who does the so-called maybe so-called white-collar job.
Mm.
Everybody is tensed about their job. Everybody is talking about the kind of hardships they find in their workplace. But these here you see a lady who enjoys her work, her labor. In fact, I couldn't distinguish her from her labor, right? The way she goes there, she catches, she sings, and it's an organic life. She does her labor. She is in fact master of her own, or she is the champion of herself, right? No one is there to control her. She lives the way that she lives. In fact, while she walks through the road, maybe somebody comes and talks to her, and she reacts so spontaneously. That's a different image work as an individual, and that's how I thought. I mean, these people, these women in particular, are quite so different, and we don't usually see these kind of women on the screen. And
Definitely.
that's how I thought of looking at these women through the angle of labor, not just through angle of labor, but I also place these women in a much more broader context, like the context of Cochin. As we all know, Kochi is actually a place that has been under colonial rule for many centuries. At least from the 16th century, sorry, 14th century onwards, you know, here we had some European settlers or colonizers. And from there, you can, if you explore the history of Kochi, Kochi has an identity of its own right now. Kochi has developed, maybe in some way it has shed its colonial past and has emerged almost like an independent place with a culture of its own. So I thought it would be very interesting to club the history of the land with that these women. That would be interesting. In fact, the survival of these women is almost is equally as important as that of this place. So almost like looking at this place through the angle of these women would be interesting. We call it as eco-feminist way of looking at the land and women and the labor that they does, and that's how it's being done. And as I've been thinking about these three characters, I'm coming from the academy. I mean, I teach in the college, so we teach a lot here Shakespeare. Since India being a British colony for many centuries, Shakespeare had a tremendous influence on the literature part here. So Macbeth has been a very influential text for all of us, and particularly I like three characters, three witches,
The witches. Yes.
the witches, and it is from this play that we got the title in Thunder, Lightning, and Rain.
Interesting. Yes.
So and that's how I thought of these are contemporary witches for me, at least when I thought, because they don't belong to the center, they don't belong to the what do you call the mainstream. They are living at the peripheries, they are living at the margins, but they are people with what do you call substantial revolutionary potential, right? And that's how I thought of connecting it with these women and witches. In fact, I read an interesting book by Terry Eagleton called On the Evil, and that evil, I mean, that particular book revisits this idea of evil through these three characters. And in fact, I also wanted to look at these three women through this perspective of Terry Gilden, how we understand evil today,
Mm.
how we understand good or bad today, right? Those things which we see as bad is not as bad as we traditionally imagine.
Yes.
So, and look at these women, right? The kind of works that they do. And these three women, they belong to they are in literal sense, they are the outcast. These three women are Dalits. They live in a very, what do you call, they live in the margins in terms of their culture, in terms of their religion, in terms of gender. I mean, they are not part of the center or what do you call the mainstream. But
Yeah.
look at the way that they live. They don't mourn at their what do you call their lives, but rather they celebrate, they counter, they question, they challenge, and they live right. And that has been a kind of what do you call so inspirational for me. And I had some confusions inside me when I went to film them. As somebody who is from a who who comes from a much more influential mainstream background, I thought these women rather questions and challenge me. First of all, right, my notions of gender, my
Yeah.
notions of what do you call patriarchy, my notions of women. They counter, they question. So I teach contemporary theory in the universities, and I teach sometimes I read feminism and other discourses of that sort. But how can I talk about these ladies? For instance, Selena, who the Undertaker.
Yeah.
Can how can I talk about empowerment to her? Right, she is more
And
than empowered,
nonsense, she
right?
is empowered.
I
I mean,
empowered, yeah, yeah,
the suffering they've gone through and to
yes,
come out of it. I mean, their context has been defined right from birth for them.
but
There's
yes,
this intersection of so many different identities which has pushed them down the rungs completely out of our imagination, made them
yes,
unseen, made them invisible
yeah,
in even the most
exactly,
well-meaning discussions. So we don't
yeah.
tend to take their account or see them. And but they have revolutionized their life coming from all sorts of violence. The story
Yes, yeah.
they have to tell, and to stand today conquering life. I mean, these are the heroes. They should be this inspiration we seek from, and nothing else.
So when I showed this film to some of the audiences here, uh, I got a tremendous response from people here. For instance, many people were watching it and they were crying. In fact, either they'll be thinking about their mothers or their somebody whom they know, right? So in fact, when I think about the act of making this film, somehow you also think about some archetypes, the image of the archetypes comes into you. Maybe your mother's image or somebody whom you might have seen in your younger days, or somebody who is very close to you. So I think these are not just the stories of these three women, but somehow there is something which transcends these stories and where we can connect with the others around us. And these days, it's very difficult to be a woman in this world, right? So I think in that sense, this is a story, this is a film which in many ways communicates and talks to not just to women across the world, but those who actually can feel this, I mean, this sense of what you call struggle and survival. So in that sense, it transcends the what do you call this cultural specific region. I mean, it travels beyond Kerala or it travels beyond India,
Hmm.
and it connects with the others.
Right. How could we talk a little more about this angle of being a documentary filmmaker, taking a camera into their space, and of course, different levels of privilege, and
Yeah, exactly.
how, I mean, there is, of course, a dilemma. One would like them to tell their stories, but people like us who have the facility to, we would like to facilitate. And then,
Yeah,
what kind of autonomy did they have
yeah,
on material?
yeah. That's a very important question. In fact, I think that's a challenge every filmmaker, particularly those who make documentary films. They confront this question, right? So when I was making this film, you can call it as an ethnographic documentary if you want, but at the same time, this is not done, uh, you know, uh, after a lot of preparations. For instance, I never went to them and I shot and just made a film. It came out of a larger, what do you call, connection with them. I went to them, I talked to them, I established a connection with them. Only when they are comfortable and ready to talk to me, I started filming their perspective. So otherwise it becomes what you call a top down approach.
Hmm.
For instance, I'll be an authoritative person asking them to do certain things and speak something, I think, which is a kind of a totalitarian attitude when you go to filmmaking. You can't do that especially when you do documentaries. If you want to get the original, if you want to get the nicest feeling from them, I think we need to connect with them, and they also need to connect with them. So it took almost 5 years to film this. Of course, the filming might have done in few years time, but it took almost 5 years to develop that relationship, right? So
Incredible.
when I went to Celine, in fact, she was not ready to talk to me, right? I asked her a lot of questions, but I don't know. Initially, she does not want to talk to me, right? For her, who am I, right? I'm nothing, right? She sees a lot of people, and it is my necessity that she talks, right?
Yes.
But for her, this is not important. If I make a film or not, that is not her concern, right? Even if someone makes a film on her, I don't think she will be more joyous about it because she is so happy with the profession that she does.
And she seems
So
very busy.
she's also very busy, in fact.
Yeah. She's an entrepreneur. Like she's
Yeah.
really.
So what I felt is that these filmmaking acts should be an empowerment thing for the film, not for me, right? So that was the kind of feeling I felt. I mean, they should be given the space, not me. That's why I purposefully avoided the usual technique of what you call the voiceover. I mean, I haven't used it. I mean, it is through their lives, it is through their languages that this film develops, right? And it was more of an observational documentary rather than what you call. I never wanted to give an authentic representation of them. Who am I to represent them? But they themselves comes to the screen and they talk, and it came out of a kind of what you call, it came out of a relationship at the end. So I think that is what important. And when I finished my filming, I went to them, I shown them the edited footage, and they gave me some suggestions, and they said you can remove that. I made a recut, and it is only with their approval that I could release this film. So in fact, they are the owners and they are the masters of their films, not me, right? I only become a medium, right? So I never want to be a message, but I'm just a medium.
Okay. So, Rajesh, would you like to tell us why did you include the Cochin Carnival and the celebration? What kind of connections were you trying to achieve and make?
So since somebody who comes from this region, I thought this event is very important because, as I said before, I wanted to connect the story of these three women to the story of the land, story of the place that they live in. I want to contextualize it. And that's how I thought of talking about Cochin, particularly a custom which is so popular here, which is in many ways a continuation of colonial, Cochin past. And that's how the, the, the effigy of an old man is burned every year. People come there, they gather, and they celebrate December 31st, and they welcome New Year, and that's how the carnival goes on. But I thought, usually, it happens on the midnight of December 31st. Since uh, the time is at midnight, we don't see much women there, and it's a very crowded place, and the condition in India, and it's very difficult for a woman to go into that masculine space. And I thought, what if these women who have been fighting against the patriarchy or the so-called toxic masculine sentiments, they should go there and they should watch and they should actually express their feelings. And that's how I imagined film. And that's why we see in the beginning of the film that these women come to a space, they talk, their perspective, they talk about themselves, their emotions, etc. There, and from there we catches, we actually follow their life, and in the end they go back to their work, and that's how I imagined the film. And I thought we should also talk about our place along with this place because the land and people's lives are in many ways connected. Right? We can't differentiate the life of people as well as that, and that's why I researched this content.
Okay. Rajesh, I'd like to shift the question now a little bit to the theme of this year's festival, which is Ray of Hope, which is celebrating the cinema of Satyajit Ray. Could you talk a little bit about if and what influence has Ray cinema had on you?
So personally, for me, I'm a filmmaker as well as a film researcher from Kerala. So what I feel is that when I was a kid, I had a chance to watch Fateh Panchali, right? So it was part of our school syllabus. Just like every other kid in India, this film had a tremendous influence on me. I mean, not up to definitely Appu had an influence on me. But for me, the old lady and her images are so peculiarly close to me. I'm not very sure why, but the character of Inder is, I'm not very sure how it is, the name is pronounced. But at the same time, all ladies' image, her faces, I mean, that image, it comes recurring to me. Right? It was so touching, so intimate. I literally remember, you know, those scenes in which we find her dead among the bamboo
Mm.
field. I mean, it's so. I mean, it comes to you often and often. So what I think is that although Satyajit Ray has contextualized his film in an interior Bengali village, but imagine, when I watch it from Kerala, I mean, I could actually connect to that situation, right? So I think that makes Ray a universal filmmaker. I mean, in spite of the regional specificities, there is something in him that takes him to a wider audience, and there is an essential humanism in him, which
Mm.
actually connects with everybody in the world, right? Not just people who belong to this region, but everybody in the world. And I think there is no other filmmaker in India who can talk about human emotions and human emotions particularly so intimately than I wonder if there is anybody there in the world. For instance, I've also watched much later his Mahanagar. I liked that film particularly well. I also like Charulata.
Mm.
And those three films are very close to me, particularly Mahanagar and Charulata. And as a kid, and even when I was going through a course in FTI, that's a film appreciation course. We had again watched together this Fateh Panchali, and I was also just thinking, even now when you watch that scene, particularly the music and also the old lady, I think it's still so intimate to. Um, so I think I'm not a very expert, but at the same time, as a film viewer, as a spectator, I think these are the things. And I also remember the last scene of Fateh Panchali, where the whole family migrates to a different place. I think those images are very important for those who live in a situation like that. For instance, I thought it represents the predicament of the whole human beings in general. We migrate from place to place for many reasons. So I think that last particular shot in many ways represents the predicament of humanity in general. So in that sense, he was an existential filmmaker, a social realist, a social critic, a political filmmaker, and in many ways, what you call a film maestro. We can definitely say that. And I still remember some other filmmakers who said it is Ray's Pater Panjali that made them filmmakers or forced them to make films. So that is the importance we all have, and I'm so happy that festival is celebrating his memory. And I think all the film buffs in India cannot but have no chance to escape from these great memories of
Yeah.
him.
It's still so relevant.
Yeah,
Every bit of music,
every
every bit of moment.
music. Yeah,
And just with migration, I mean, we have so many images of my people
my
migrating just with COVID in India, and
India
it's still alive. All those.
is still alive. Yeah, that's why I said he's a very political filmmaker. You know, Ray might not have imagined it, but when you watch the film, it becomes so contemporary, right? We could easily connect with our contemporary situations. In that sense, I would say that his images are poetic as well as political, which we rarely see in filmmakers, right? Right? It's both poetic as well as it's political.
True. Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you
Yeah.
for
Thank you,
being with
Vasudha.
us
Yeah,
and giving us this time. I wish you all the best and the film
thank
all
you.
the best. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you would like to see In Thunder, Lightning, and Rain, please check the full program of the festival on the website www.ukaff.com. The festival runs from 26th of May to the 6th of June. Please follow all our activities on social media. For Twitter, it's at Come to UKAFF, and for Instagram and Facebook, it's at UK Asian Film Festival. Thank you and bye bye.